Hi, I'm Mara Webster with the DC Environmental Film Festival, and so thrilled to have you all joining us for today's Q&A for the Mushroom Speaks. Hope you really enjoyed the film, and I'm so thrilled today to be joined by the director of the film, Marion Neuman. And I was interested in kind of where the initial genesis for the idea of this particular film and what the kind of initial learning about and fascination of the fungi world and where that came from for you, because it's so great.
Well, thank you for your curiosity on fungi. For me, it was the first meeting, the first encounter with Peter McCoy. Peter McCoy from the radical mycology movement. And in meeting him, learning about potentials and visions of mycoremediation, for mushroom cultivation, actually a whole mycoculture, a language about it, a new kind of getting in connection with the natural environment. So in meeting Peter, I memorized my own link to mushrooms that were here already when I was a child in the forest, you know, of going gathering just food. And yeah, on different levels, I was already connected to the fungi. So in meeting Peter, it was an initial moment to think of making a work about it, yeah, project.
That's so great. And you've got some really, fascinating subjects and people speaking to this in the film. Was that something that Peter kind of helped with certain introductions or letting you know, like maybe you want to talk to this person? Or was some of that also just about you going off and doing research into the world and into a lot of the kind of community and culture that comes with it as well?
Yeah, it was a lot of that, the community and culture at this moment, right? There's a kind of a renaissance or a kind of a new flowering of human fungal or any new relation with the living. So Anna Tsing was there, of course. Her work is very essential to thinking fungi. So I knew I want to think about it as well as a metaphor. And so I would know also that I would like to talk about the aspect of um, um, magic mushrooms, even if I knew that they are all magic, but the aspect of the potential of psilocybin or amanita and other fungi would interest me. Of course, the toxicity, the circle between life and death. So I would say it had one starting point, and then it would ripple out like in a rhizome and go into different directions. And then working as a fungi also, I would think of myself of how could I apply this way of seeing and inter connecting with others. So this became also my way of working, or I don't know how to say. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's so great. And I also really like the fact that you're taking us into different spaces. You're taking us into the forests where people are kind of foraging for, looking at, studying. We see that, we see a lot of the work that Peter and people in his field are doing. We also get the opportunity to really see, how city life impacts it as well. So it's not just something about going into the wildlife, it's also about the impact of man and human-made structures on nature as well, which I thought was really great. Was that something that very early on you realized you wanted to kind of hit all of those particular spots and look both in the wildlife and both within cities and the way that people are working with them?
Yeah, I was interested in the wildlife of a city, let's say, or like where I live, or where human activity is really shaping what's happening on the planet. And yes, I knew that I would like to talk about a certain complexity, and yeah, to get a most complete or a most open maybe view on this invisible world. The invisible was also something I was curious about. So, and I wanted to maybe be free like a spore, like flying from one idea to the next, and trying to weave also the encounters I had into kind of new mycelia, right? The mycelia of the film. Um, yeah.
And in interweaving a lot of moments in the film, you have moments where the camera has a lot of close-ups, sometimes even to like a literally seeing the cells of mushrooms on screen. And then there's a lot of kind of script and text that we see at the bottom. And I think some of those are quotes as well. And so how did you set about finding those moments in the film and deciding what you wanted to have on screen that kind of creates a little bit more of like a dreamlike state for the audience to enter in on, that's a little bit different to the presentation of information in between?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, at the very beginning, there was the inspiration of Terence McKenna and this whole universe opening there, and this whole dialogue or conversation that can take place. The Mushroom Speaks is a written text by Terence. So this was there in the beginning. So I knew, and I did myself various kinds of dialogues with this being, or with the intelligence, or this trying to get into a dialogue with it. And so I knew that this will be conceptual and writing, and I knew that I would like to make it a diary, without knowing that the day I would enter the editing, the COVID situation, the pandemic situation would be a starting point. And so I wanted to name this moment with a date, and so it became really a diary. So there were certain elements clear before shooting, and then when going into editing, I would basically work as on camera. So I would again collect many things, also writing, um, and then I knew that the people I've met should be there, and that I would like to have it like a choral in the end, on many different levels, a conversation, right, between the protagonists, between me and them, between them and the fungal world, between ideas, concepts, thoughts. And I thought the idea I treat it as a subtitle, to actually give the spectator also his voice, or maybe listening to one's own voice. This was the thought behind. So I thought the silence and just give you space to read might give you some time for yourself, and this might be essential in any kind of relationship to this world and oneself. So
It sounds like you were thinking a lot about the audience experience, and it's a film that isn't just straightforward presentation of information, it is more experiential. Was that important to you?
yes, of course, yeah. I guess that's the main message of fungi, the idea of direct experience when learning, when interacting with something, when being in this world. So I thought that, yeah, the experiencing of it is one essential aspect of getting maybe into relationship or curiosity, actually. So maybe once you leave your seat, maybe you discover your own curiosity about fungi. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also interesting kind of the scenes that you have within, within nature, within a lot of the forest, and really getting to kind of get very close up with a lot of fungal species like in the wildlife. But also it's great because like those scenes, there's kind of like a more calm pacing to them, and it really expresses the patience required as well. Just kind of like seeing the journey to discovery was really wonderful. Was that something where when you were filming those scenes, you started to have that idea of kind of like the calmness of the pacing in those moments, or was that something that you found when you were editing the film?
No, it was clear since the beginning that the fungal time is different, and that's yeah, the time, right, of these processes of decomposition or of transformation, and also of just being somewhere. So I knew that from the beginning, that the time that I would like to give time to experience the environments, the people I would meet, the mushrooms we would see, any kind of sensual approach. Actually, I wanted to give it time. Yeah.
And there's a lot of conversation about human relationships with mushrooms. What was kind of the relationship that you developed yourself, and some of the emotional connection that you found, or things and specific details that you really love about that world that you hadn't known about before?
I'm interested about death, actually, the dying. This is something that triggers my approach on any kind of activity. So this was one aspect, and the poetry, the beauty of it, the aesthetics also, simply beside this fact of such a pure strength of regeneration, of adaptation and transformation. So this is really the most beautiful about fungi in my point of view. Yeah. And this passion also of these people working with fungi, this curiosity and applied sciences, right? To really, yeah, the aspect of direct experience, of practice, of knowing something. Yeah.
And with the camera work that you have, you know, we get some really kind of quite beautiful close-up shots where we really see a lot of the textures and the detailing so close in the film. What was kind of your journey of just discovering how you wanted to film all these different mushrooms that you were finding and discovering and learning about throughout the film in that way?
I knew that it will be very colorful and more like the idea of collage. So that very different milieu and places and environments, yeah, and will meet in this film. So this is what I knew, and I knew also that I would like to cycle, that I would like to invite other artists to participate. So also Peter, as an artist, participated. I knew that he is shooting also the cultures he's working with as a mycologist. So um, I knew that I would like to find a place for his images as well, and other artists, also scientific images that I knew I could not do better myself, and they exist already. So the idea of recycling images was there, and yeah, most actually working with the moment, like most intuitively. That's what I do. I follow intuition.
That's really great. And you were mentioning before when you started editing the film that obviously kind of COVID came into play as well. So I imagine that that also changed the process of editing. You know, how did that influence the way that you were working in the post-production of the film?
I could not escape. I had to stay where I was in this editing room quite long time, alone with the years of experience. It was the first time that I did this, and I was very lucky to have a production company, like a producer like Katja and Luc from Intermezzo Film, that really supported me to let me work into this, into liberty, actually. So I would have 4 hours film in the end of 1.5 years, and then start working with an editor once the situation was more easy for everyone and we could yeah, meet again. And then it was anyway the end of my process. So I would work 12 weeks with an editor, Ursula Valenti, and she would really, yeah, she followed the whole process actually the same again. She and also the sound artist I was working with, Olga Koksharova, both of them would share the process since the beginning. So they would see images that were shot, they would discuss about the film, they would share their ideas about it, and so also they would follow a long process, but then in the end, really in quite an intense and short time, we would finish the editing of the film and also the sound design.
I mean, you must have had such an extensive amount of footage from the amount of time that you were working on the film, and even just, you know, all the different spaces that you're filming with, all of the different people that you're talking to on camera. How did you kind of first set about figuring out what the structure of the film was going to be, and start kind of working with that amount of footage to get it down to even just that first version that you were saying that was about 4 hours to begin with?
Actually, it's funny because yeah, while shooting you feel, right, sometimes you have this intuition already of a conversation.
Yeah.
There were 2 moments, and so I would start to work with that 2 moments, so, and not more. In the beginning, really trying to reduce it quite fast to the most essential moments for me, and trying to build a structure with that. So of course, in this film, it was a lot about conversations. We would really talk a lot, and so I would start with that, and then from there create experience around, like the situations we would live, like with Anna Tsing in the coal mine. I would edit the situations we would live there, and with Peter the same in his lab, if it was about cultivating fungi or remediation experiences, we would just edit them and then see how these situations would start to communicate between them. And at the end, I would write the dialogue or the silent or this text for the subtitles, so, and give it structure. But first, working with what is already, and trying to shape it, take away, add something in the end. Yeah.
There's
It's
also mention in the film of the changing environment and how that's influencing a lot of the fungi culture in the world. And what were kind of the main things that you saw or learned about through making this film about the way that environmental change is really impacting a lot of mushrooms and a lot of fungi species?
Yeah, I understood better, much better, the aspect of time.
Yeah.
What it means that the soil that was created through millions of years is destroyed by a couple of years and some complex actions. So what this means, the meaning of soil, I understood through this work, and the dimension of transformation we did, and what it needs to really maintain most of all, yeah, like the living, like diversity, what it means, and that it means really that we take action on any level, and that it's an individual question. But I also understood at which point it's really a systematic question. It's like of the governments, of industry, of like really on a high level, how it's important to find and apply strategies now to keep the living on this planet, yeah, and to have food for us all, yeah.
Yeah. And with audiences watching the film, you know, with what you were just talking about, but also the experience that you created for them throughout the film, what's kind of the connection or the conversation that you hope that they'll leave the film with?
An awareness about skills we have, and that we can develop many things much better in community, and really trying to build up communities from where we are, like the most concrete possible, right? So if the movie could inspire this movement, I guess it would be wonderful. Like, yeah.
That's really great. Well, congratulations on the film, and thank you so much for sharing it with us at the festival. And we hope that everybody watching the Q&A and joining us for this screening will continue to check out a lot of the rest of the great films that we have screening at the festival. Thank you so much, Marion. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.